Welcome everyone to the Agile Professionals Meetup. My name is Matthias Nino. I work for REI Systems, and we have this meetup once a month and around topics for agility. We've been running this for, oh my goodness, almost 4 years now. So welcome everyone. A little bit about REI Systems before we start. We are mostly a federal contractor doing high-end software solutions for government. A lot of modernization work, a lot of open government transparency work, and a lot of grants management work. We take a lot of pride in our software development process, and we strive for excellence in that area. And if you think you've got what it takes and you're interested to know more, check out our site. We have many open positions right now, and always interested to just get to know people in the community and kind of just get to know one another. So feel free to take a look. Today we have a very special panel. I've known Padmini for a while now, and we spoke at Agile DC, and she was very excited about this panel of Scrum Masters that she wanted to put out there to really tell their stories and share what has worked for them. So I won't get too far into it. I'll let Padmini talk about it. So welcome, Padmini. Give her a hand.
Thanks, everyone. As Matthias introduced, my name is Padmini Nidumolu, and I'm with Fannie Mae. Started out as a consultant and converted into a full-time employee. And I have the Scrum Master team and enterprise data. And we've been through the Agile transformation for the past, this is our 5th year, so it's pretty exciting. And just kind of springboarding from what we did in Fannie Mae and my experience elsewhere in other organizations and other industries, I would like to introduce an initiative that I'm a part of. In fact, I co-founded this organization called Lean and Agile for Women. Lean and loosely inspired by Sheryl Sandberg's book, as you all might know, Lean and this organization is primarily to bring in women for self-development, both professionally and personally, right? So it's very different from a meetup format, if you will. So we will not have formal presenters per se, or there is no just touch and go kind of a format, but this organization is to bring the women together so they can offer to the group and seek from the group. So together this group moves from point A to point B in several months possibly, but you are becoming stronger as a group, but you also found the match in the group where you can offer something to that woman and you can take something. So it's a very very cohesive group where it's truly by the women, for the women, and of the women kind of an organization. So we are kicking off. In fact, we kicked off several spirals, as we call them. The groups are called spirals because it's open-ended and it always reaches high. And we recently kicked off our spirals in India, Canada, and Nepal. And we are bringing it to the US in 4 cities, including Washington, DC, and Virginia. Virginia chapter is starting next month. And Carrie is also involved in this. Carrie McLeod, I don't know if anybody knows her here, but she's going to be the co-organizer. We'll have our very first meetup, or the first spiral next month. So please watch out for the space called Lean and Agile, Northern Virginia, on the meetup space, and please join in, and we'll have a fantastic opening session. So that being said, we have this fantastic panel right here. Surekha, Ella, and Padma work in my team, and they're just amazing women. They've been on my team for 1 year now. They just finished their 1 year, and it just so happened that most of my team members are women, including Ava, who's sitting here, right? So, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that there are many women and the impact they are making in the organization, which is tremendous, right? And when we were talking about, the maturity of Agile teams, and it was more like an experiment, very implicit experiment of what can women bring to the teams to enable diversity or even leverage diversity on the teams to bring in maturity. So when I was chatting with them, they were like, this is a fantastic topic for us to share with the world. So here they are, right? So Surekha, Kulkarni, Seygelman, and Padma Putrevu. I'll give it to them to introduce themselves and kick this off. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
I am Padma Putrevu, and good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been a long day for many of you, but you took the time to come here. So I am really very thankful to all of you for being here. I am working in Fannie Mae as a Scrum Master, and my Agile journey started in 2008 when I started working on a large new application development. And that's when I also got my Certified Scrum Master certification, and along with Chitra. Yeah, and after that, I have, prior to 2008, my experience has predominantly been that of a project manager, and then I got into the Agile way of working in 2008. From there, I have built and honed my experience, and I have worked in small businesses. I have worked in organizations as large as the World Bank and Capital One. And I have worked in distributed teams, co-located teams, teams that are distributed across different time zones also and located in different countries. So I do have a diverse experience that way, and I'm very eager to share what I learned with all of you. I've also played the role of a product owner for one of the teams that I was in Fannie Mae, and currently I am a Scrum Master. I am a volunteer for a nonprofit organization that helps victims of domestic violence for the last 17 years, South Asian victims of domestic violence. And I am I'm a SAFE certified Scrum Master and SAFE Agilist, and I'm currently preparing for my PMI ACP certification. Pretty nervous about that. And I'm very excited to be here today, so thank you again for being here.
And my name is Seygelman. As Padmini mentioned, I joined Fannie Mae about a year ago. We're on the Scrum Master right now. My Agile journey started probably back in, sorry, the cheat sheet, back probably in about 2010, 2011. Or I feel like even before that, sort of acting Agile or semi-Agile, but not officially. So I guess officially it started more when I was at K-12, where I was part of a data warehouse team and I was a business analyst. And it seems like all the other technical groups, received official training. They became Agile, and they had all the stickies on the wall, and it was all great. But for some reason, our team, because it was sort of separate, and we didn't necessarily interact with those other teams, although we received all the data from their systems, we were kind of left to the side until they kind of realized, like, wait a minute. We kind of need to be aware of all these changes that are happening, and we need to be in the loop, and we need to become more Agile. So as all of the coaches were leaving the company, we got a 2-hour introduction to Agile and kind of left our own devices. And we had project managers that were acting sort of in the Scrum Master role, but also wearing the project management hats. And as they were kind of coming through our group, the opportunity arose for me to take on that role. So I was kind of wearing multiple hats. I was still a business analyst for the team, but I was also Scrum Master for the team, doing all the ceremonies and that sort of thing. And it was definitely, there were some challenges there, and as I kept saying, we were Agile. So when the opportunity came to move to Fannie Mae, where they're like serious about their Agile game, I took that leap. And since then, I've become a certified Scrum Master as well as SAFE certified. And it's been a great learning experience, and hopefully we will share that here. But it was funny because, we all have a different Agile journey, and I was thinking, mine went back about 6 years back. But I was chatting with a former coworker on LinkedIn, And she said, oh, I see you're a Scrum Master now. I just heard about that recently. It's like, oh. So it's still new to some people and still growing, and not everyone has been introduced to it. So I found that interesting. So thank you.
I know, you stole my words. I was just hearing myself actually right there. So yeah, I'm Surekha Kulkarni. Good evening, everyone. So similar story actually. My journey started as Agilist. As in about 2014, I was working for a pension benefit corporation in DC. But like we were in a team called Agile team, but apparently I lately realized it was nowhere closer to where we are right now. So it's definitely, we were wearing multiple hats. We were called Scrum Masters, but I was a business analyst too. Like POs were doing the project management work as well. So it's a blend of all the roles and responsibilities we were working on. And so it was never, like Ella said, we had a big board where we were putting stickies, moving stickies around, but that's what Agile was like a few years back until I joined the team here, where I was able to understand really the true process, and it gave, like last 1 year that I've been with this group as a Scrum Master, it gave me a lot of opportunities. I learned a lot through the entire process of 1 year. So I'm very grateful to be here in this project and with the team. Everybody, I learn a lot day in, day out with every one of us. So.
And I guess if I can just add, the one big difference I noticed between Panama and places I worked before is the kind of buy-in from upper management and them supporting this whole Agile game, right? Because without it, there's a lot of challenges I found in the past.
Cool, thank you. And Ella reminded me, apparently there is another meetup happening right now somewhere with Legos.
Yeah,
so like a building or something.
Yeah.
So all of you, and we commend you for choosing us over like a meetup, right? This is for you. Awesome, and we just want to throw this disclaimer, especially diversity and inclusion. We want to be very sensitive that this is based on our experiences and our perspectives and our learnings. So we thought just throw it out there. All right, so we want to dive into the topic right away, right? So what does diversity mean to us? And this is probably the most overused term, right? Lately, diversity and inclusion is huge, not just in the organizations, but in the general transactions as well. So let's go into this and hear from the panel, really brief about Padma. What do you think? What does diversity mean to you?
For me, it means understanding that each one of us is unique and each one of us is different. And this can be along the many dimensions of race and, international origin, religious beliefs, etc. My team here, my fellow Scrum Masters will also talk about it. But for me, I have come to realize, I have seen this firsthand, that having a diverse team and respecting diversity has a direct impact on a company's bottom line. And the way I experienced it firsthand is, I worked for a company that made the website for Southwest Airlines accessible to people with visual disabilities. And until then, I did not even know that services and products can actually create a digital divide, and you could actually be leaving out a whole group of customers, which could actually make a very loyal group of customers for you. Because if you are able to make your website accessible so that a person with visual disabilities who probably uses a screen reader to go through websites, to browse websites, like how you and I would browse a website, they would use a screen reader, and they can actually buy an air ticket and travel to another place. That really opened up my mind. Honestly, I did not even know that it was possible until then. So I have experienced it firsthand, where if you are able to, open up your business practices and have products and services that can cater to a diverse population, it makes very good business sense. And then, for me, again, diversity also means cognitive diversity, right? If you are not recognizing the different experiences that people have and the different ideas that they bring to the table, that diversity is not going to get you what you want. And as a Scrum Master, what it means to me is I have a diverse team. Now, how do I get all the team members to work cohesively and be productive and high performing consistently and continuously? I guess that is also at times my challenge, because not always you work with the team. You could be new to the team, or or you're inheriting a team, or you are going to be working with a team that has been specially put together for a project. Now, how do you take that team through the journey of agility and maturity so that they become high performing? And what comes to my mind here is we all have our own unique beliefs and biases also. And for example, we've heard all these cliches, right? Like the squeakiest wheel gets greased first, or the nail that sticks out gets hit on the head, or the loudest duck gets shot. And these are all examples of cultural diversity. And as a woman, women are sometimes taught that if you cannot speak anything nice, then do not speak at all. I don't know how many of you can testify to that, but I can. So, so how do you manage all of this, and how do you ensure that everybody has a voice at the table, so that, and a psychologically safe environment, so that they can open up and, give their best self? So for me as a Scrum Master, taking my team through that journey is essential. So that's what diversity means to me. How can I get everybody to work together and be high performing?
Thank you, Ella.
Yeah, and to be honest, at first I kind of struggled with this topic because, I understand what diversity is. It's like difference in age, gender, ethnicity, perhaps background. And we'll actually see a slide at the end that talks about the different roles that, women and men have right now. And there's some, numbers behind that. Even though I think, I'm trying to remember the numbers, but like something like 56% of professionals are women, but I think only 26% of them are in computing. So anyway, there's some interesting numbers out there, and I think the numbers are even smaller for women of color. But when I was trying to think of the topic relating to Agile, I think when Padma brought up cognitive diversity, that's kind of, I went Googling and I found all sorts of interesting information, and I'll just throw some numbers out there that I found interesting. So it says, cognitive diversity is the range of ways in which people make sense of new information, which is definitely, very important in Scrum teams, how they solve problems, so that kind of diversity, how they respond to unfamiliar situations, right? That's something we face on a daily basis. So that those kind of differences in how we help our teams, perform better when they have those differences in the ways that Padma explained. And just again to throw some numbers behind that, this is from Fast Company magazine. They said that this type of diversity produces better business outcomes. It enhances innovation by 20%. It reduces risk by 30%. Again, when we have all these diversities, and it eases the implementation of decisions. Again, when we have that healthy conflict that we talked about. So that's the way I started looking at it with this definition of diversity.
Thank you, Ella. Surekha, what do you think?
I think when I think of diversity, I think of mix of like what we think of mix of flowers make a bouquet, right? So similarly, mix of diverse people, like with their working style, with their experience, different variables that can contribute towards being a diverse team, right? Like their interests, their background, where they come from. So they are all in different variables that can contribute to a personality or the person that you are. And being a part of a Scrum Master, being part of diversity, my goal or my roles and responsibilities would be to bring the team to work towards a common goal, the purpose, with due respect and trust, and work towards a commitment. That's what I see a diverse team and the roles and responsibilities that I can, as a Scrum Master, that's what I want to bring up in my diverse team, the commitment that they can focus towards. So that's what I see, blend of different talents, different nature group of people working together.
Awesome. Thank you. And we really wanted to open this discussion to you all. It's not meant to be a panel monologue, but we really wanted to open up and hear from you. What does diversity really mean to you all? And please feel free to share your experiences or perspectives based on your own interactions. But there have been studies, in fact, that best decisions or innovative ideas emerge from a diverse group of people, right? It's healthy conflicts, healthy contradictions, and just challenging each other's viewpoints leads to amazing results than similar thinking and similar minded people. So it's been proven. But do you all want to share about diversity? And as the panelists just mentioned, it's not about the visible diversities we're talking about, right? Not just the gender or the color or the ones that are cliched and mentioned often, but diversities in many respects. Do you want to share something? We really want to make this a conversation.
I can share. I am not working in an agile environment, and it is extremely frustrating every time I listen to something like this, right? I have an amazingly diverse team. Everybody on the team is so bright, but management has not even heard about Agile. We are in 2019, they don't even know what Agile is. And I try to say something about it, and I was the nail. And it is just, I don't know how to use all this potential and all this talent that we have to bring, to bring our talents together as a team and as a, we each do our work and it's working, and we are not using diversity at all, so I don't know.
You're not leveraging diversity.
No, we're not,
Yeah.
and we're not leveraging teamwork. We're not leveraging anything that we have. So.
And if you're silenced for bringing it up, and as Ella was mentioning, you absolutely need the support of leadership because they're the ones who are the budget providers, right? So unless the investment committees up there really endorse this, it's very hard, and then, which is why agile transformations are not easy. They're not quick either. They're pretty long term because if you want something to stick and sustain, it's a long process. So I hope it works, by some kind of a transformation, bringing in some agents, hopefully. But it's really not a short answer.
I think if your leadership is asking why, I worked with Padmini and Panime, and what I saw a difference in terms of deliverables, you may not see much difference. I think that's where the bottom line, the leadership looks at it. What Agile brings is focus on individuals, right? One of the principles says individuals and interactions over process, right? Like you're talking about, you have these great individuals in your team. Without Agile, your leadership or anybody external would never see them or never or give them the opportunity. That's where you see a difference. In terms of culture, when we're starting out during the whole tech boom, one of the great things, first project I was in, I had folks from Vietnam, China, of course, from India, and right from here. The great thing about it, that time I remember is every Friday I used to go to each different restaurant. But it was just amazing mixture at that time. One thing which will come out different is the ideas. When Agile also brings out the best is the ideas that come in. When you have the same set of people from the same background, you think in silos, right? You don't, critical thinking is very important. It doesn't come natural to human beings, right? Just like we speak, listening is not natural for us. Critical thinking is not natural. and having diverse, gives you idea in addition to going out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anybody else?
So they say basically the heterogeneity gives an opportunity to grow and learn and share from others.
Sorry, you were saying something, please.
No, excuse me, I think it's a great topic. I just am reminded of, if you're interested, I just finished a course on thinking differently.
Oh,
It's in the great courses, and it's very much supports the themes of what you're talking about here. And the essence, it was a few months ago, I remember, but the essence of it, that if you have diversity in a team, in a certain way it creates tension, and that tension is the fuel for innovation,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
right? If everybody's thinking along the same lines and nobody has any other thoughts, and everybody has the same way of doing everything and the same approach,
It creates silence.
you tend not to innovate as much.
Right.
By having different perspectives and different points of view on a team, that's one of the raw ingredients of innovation.
Yeah, because unless you challenge each other, how does, new topic come up?
And you're going to challenge if you're different, because,
Yeah, because you have a different backdrop.
yeah.
Sorry, you were saying
So I think a lot of people would agree that having a diverse team is ultimately going to deliver a better, more thoughtful kind of product. I think the challenge is in the everyday working environment, especially if you're like a government contractor and you're out there trying to staff a project kind of thing, right? In some cases, it's you put the people on the team that you have available or who need a slot. You don't get to the time to kind of design it.
Yeah.
To say, hey, I'd really like to have, a more diverse team, but it's in a lot of cases you're resource constrained. So that'd be interesting to know how, within Fannie Mae, how you're able to, assuming you have diverse teams, how you're able to kind of do that with all the pressures and constraints of hiring and who do you have available and all that kind of thing, right?
And I think you bring up a great point, right? And as you go through the panel, you'll also, see that I don't think we really hire explicitly for diversity, right? However, the topic here that we want to really explore today, and I'm very passionate about, is in the existing team, whoever they are, and you might probably have hired them for, to staff them because, it's a particular expertise or whatever. But even within the available team, no two team members are the same. And so they have diversity in some respect. And they both probably are diverse, and I'm just comparing two individuals here, they both probably are diverse in their learning abilities, leading styles, and different backgrounds, different experiences, even coming from the same place, right? Or even coming from the same family, you're still diverse. So our topic today is looking at those diversities, right? Which are implicit, not explicit. Even though you're not hiring for diversity, with what you have, with how you've staffed your team, you can still have that diversity being leveraged to have, to build a high-performing team. And it might not always be conducive, but within the limitations, within the resources we have and hired, we want to explore how we can do it. Okay. And it might not be a great story all the time, but we just want to explore that. So we're all in the exploring zone here. All right, so let's move here and go through what is diversity in terms of the pyramid you're showing here.
So this pretty much sums up all the thoughts that would have crossed our mind when the word diversity is posed to us, or the question about diversity is posed to us. But as Scrum Masters, in the upcoming slides, we want to cover how, given the constraints of the team and the outputs that are desired from this team that has been put together, or an existing team that is in place for quite some time now, how do you manage these differences? How do you manage the visible diversity, and how do you manage the invisible diversity? And then there is also that gray area of visible and invisible. So what is it that you can do as a Scrum Master for your teams so that your teams are performing consistently, and then take them through the journey of from being consistent to becoming high performing, and probably even be innovative in what they're doing. So that's what we want to cover.
Sure. Anything else that you guys want to add before we move on?
We can go with the next slide. So this pretty much sums it up. A picture is worth 1,000 words. But again, I wanted to talk about, as a Scrum Master, what you can do to manage diversity within your teams, right? So since I worked with, I had the good fortune and the opportunity to work with teams that are distributed and highly diverse, and when I say highly diverse, different countries, like the business users are sitting in one country, the developers are sitting in another country, the vendors are sitting in another country, and so you can imagine all these different time zones that I had to manage through, and again, even within Fannie Mae, I did have work with distributed teams, not necessarily in different countries, but in different buildings, or somebody's working remote, and then I also have co-located teams where everybody is face to face. So all of this has urged me to become a better communicator, because that is pretty much the first skill I have to learn and relearn every day. Be a better communicator. If your message is not going through, then the first thing that you need to fix is here. So that is one thing that I would say. So connect with your teams. Everyone is driven differently. Try, and if possible, if time permits, try and connect with each person individually, and you don't have to do it on day one, but make it a point to do it over time. Then creative collaboration, which is set up your teams for success, but clearly identifying the goals, or facilitate that clarity for them. If you cannot do it, get the right people in the room so that everybody is on the same page. Everybody walks out of the room with the same understanding of what needs to be delivered. Shared understanding of working agreements, definition of done, definition of ready. These are like pretty much the building blocks for a team to be high performing, or for a team to be consistent. First, let's talk about a team being able to deliver consistently, and then we'll go to high performing. Constant communication, so ensure that the teams are co-located for face-to-face communication, and where possible, if the teams are not co-located, then use the tools that are available for you, WebEx video, Jabber, and Skype, and all of that. But also, when I say constant communication, have real-time dashboards. If you have the luxury of a smart board around where you're sitting, then have some real-time dashboards so that you can see how stories are moving through the lanes, if something is ready for acceptance, or how the burn down chat is. These are all things available for you. That's a way of constant communication. The dashboard is right there, it's being updated real time, everybody can see it, and it also helps create transparency of what everybody is doing. And then most importantly for me, you will succeed only if you model the behaviors that you want others to also follow. So focus on being a good listener, and then be collaborative and lead with authenticity. So you cannot just say that, oh, we are going to collaborate, but I've already decided what you have to do, you just have to follow it. That will not work. So you model the behavior that you want to see in the team. So that's I would recommend. I'll also discuss specific examples that worked for me. For example, I had this team member who brought up in one of the retrospectives that she was not getting the help that she needed, and even if she was sending emails to the team, or it was not working, because either she would not get the response, or not the right person who could actually help her would not respond, and she was too diffident to actually speak up. So then in the retrospective, we decided, we tweaked the working agreement, and we decided that if somebody needs help, when they come to the stand-up, they will actually raise their hand and say the words, I need help. And then after the stand-up, the person, once everybody has given their updates, the person who needed help will explain what the situation is, and instead of people walking away right after the stand-up, they all get to listen, and instead of saying, hey, it's not my problem, everybody will work towards, okay, I can take care of this, and who else can take care of this, and then that person can get the help that they want. So simple things like that. It doesn't have to be some major drastic change that you're bringing into the team, but simple things like, hey, I need help. Raise your hand, say that I need help. How difficult or how easy it is to follow. But if you don't create that those team norms with your team as a Scrum Master, that's pretty much the basic. So if that is not happening, then achieving higher levels of agility and maturity will only become that much more difficult. So these are very simple things that you can follow.
Thank you. Ella?
Sure. Yeah, actually, in the past, I also had a chance to work with distributed teams, and that kind of brings its own challenges because, when you have people in India and Latin America and on the East Coast and the West Coast, just figuring out a time for stand-up can be a challenge because, it's end of the day for some people, it's, super early, for some other people. But at Fannie Mae, at least, we have the luxury of having co-located teams and, everyone's there to get sitting together, not just, meeting. And just some examples I wanted to throw out there, just running through some of the usual ceremonies. So like, for example, on a daily stand-up, sometimes just reviewing the team norms, right? Weather is getting bad, schools are closing, whatever other issues, it's like, but if we all agree that, we're going to meet at 9:45, and it's 9:45 and people are calling in or they're not in or whatever, should we review that? Should we say maybe let's start at 10, or why can't we meet? Or what are we going to do if we're not in person? Is it okay to call in and then follow up later? So just reviewing those kind of things too. Because, even if the team is self-organizing, sometimes these ceremonies kind of go to the wayside and things kind of start to fall apart a little bit. So, and then as far as like planning, so we have our typical definition of ready that we reviewed during the planning sessions. But what I thought was interesting is we started doing certain problem-solving sessions that are addressed by various teams. And in addition to definition of ready, a couple of my teams came up with a planning list. So it's another checklist that they said they needed before they're ready to take something on, which I thought was really good because it kind of helps the team to commit to what they're working on. So as far as retrospectives, so it definitely was, thinking back with remote teams, that was extra challenging because, sometimes you're on the phone and people are on the WebEx, you can't see them. Some people refuse to go on the video because, it's 7 a.m. where they are and they don't want to be seen. So that definitely brought challenges. So, look for ways to use a visual board or something where they can put a sticky. So, if they didn't feel comfortable speaking up, or, sometimes over a 2-week period, you forget what happens, right? I mean, a lot went on. So it's a place for them to put a virtual sticky. Or on the wall, kind of in the Teams area at Fannie Mae, there's a place there for them to put little stickies to capture information that they want to discuss. But basically just kind of looking for ways to, draw some of those people that don't normally speak up. Because there's usually one person that has a long list of complaints that, they want to talk about. But through the use of either metrics or even sometimes just calling a few, like, what do you think? Or how do things go? Because at the bottom, at the end of the day, it's always like what went well and what didn't go well, right? So, but finding creative ways to bring that out people, I think is what's helped in the retrospectives the least. And then, as Padma mentioned, always having that kind of visual representation. Like we use Jira, and I used Jira in my previous company, and having that visible to everyone. And sometimes, even though you think a physical board is easier, it's because it's more visible. Some people, some teams at least prefer to have it in Jira and just access it and update it in there and add their comments and make sure information is shared that way. So those are just some of the little things that I found helpful.
Surekha, do you want to know?
Sure. Adding on to my experience, right? So the one that coming from the government agency, I've seen generation gap is one such diverse team that I was involved in, where my team was somewhere ranging from a 50-year-old person to a millennial straight out of college. So our team was huge, had a huge generation gap. So, but being a Scrum Master of the team and being with them, what I learned is during the brainstorming session, when everybody was involved, the think tank of these millennials was very fast filling, right? They come with the innovation ideas, they come with so many thoughts, very, very quickly. And then because lack of experience, because lack of the insight or depth knowledge on the topic, they were not able to contribute well. But bringing the seniors in the team, like, you know, where they've been in the agency for a longer time, they were able to, like, you know, bringing them and working collaboratively. I've seen, like, you know, much more faster, like, you know, the outcome of the desired outcome of the meeting. Like, you know, we were able to fill the gaps, bring like the proper ideas and the innovations to the table, and then able to produce the quality product. Like, I mean, the project was, like, you know, was able to, like, maneuver in the right direction. So that's what I have seen in my past, that even though we had a huge gap, diverse team, but working collaboratively, communicating face to face, bringing them together, was definitely a like, you know, a successful project for us. So I mean, I've also seen, like, you know, where the points where during, like, you know, in my current projects also, I've come across this where during retrospective or stand-up, we have, like, you know, a person talking in a very low voice which cannot be heard across the room, or if the person is really on the phone, like, you know, it's hard to even understand, like, you know, what he's trying to give the message. So the way that I encourage team is to, like, reiterate what the person is saying. Like, you know, it's not an offensive, but, like, you know, at least to make sure everybody else in the room is understanding what the person who's saying. And because we have a diverse ethnic group, or like the culture, or even I mean, language barrier is also one of the issues or concerns that I have seen in my diverse team that I've been involved with. So where they are not able to communicate, or like they were not able to translate their message across the room. So like, to overcome that, like, you know, building a face-to-face communication, or like, you know, one-on-one, being like listening, active listening to them, empathetic listening. So those are, like, you know, I think skills that I would like to work with the person or like the team, so that, like, you know, we as a Scrum Master, I would help them to become a really high-performing team.
I think those were, you know, you hit the nail on the head, right? I think the diversities, and we really want to open it up again to you all to kind of, you know, gather your experiences. But, you know, the millennials versus, you know, the super experienced folks combination often happens, right? And in an Agile team, you will see diverse experiences, because remember, these are not teams that have been there forever, right? These are, you know, mix and choose, mix and match from various, you know, organizational levels to kind of put together a high-performing team, or a team for a particular initiative. So you'll see a lot of these spectrums, right? You know, very old or very experienced or very seasoned to, you know, something on the other spectrum. So how do you ensure that, you know, the leadership styles or learning styles or the way they operate or their patience levels or their own backgrounds, experience, everything is different. So how do you as a Scrum Master or a change agent ensure that it's okay to be on the, you know, both sides of the spectrum? How can we ensure that the ends are kind of overarching to make it a more effective team? And there is no one silver bullet per se, right? You know, there is no one solution to make that happen. So as the panel said, it's the communication, it's the listening skills, and also it's emotional intelligence, right? So when you are, you know, pinging into the emotional space of your program, you kind of know the spectrum in front of you. So how do you effectively make sure that the right people are collaborating and kind of, you know, cross-pollinating? That's more effective. Who would like to share an experience where you've seen very diverse styles or personalities or experiences resulting in something, positive, negative, or otherwise? Anybody has anything that comes to your mind in your team? Don't tell us that you have perfect teams with everybody kind of figured it out, right? All of your current teams probably are very diverse. right? You know, their backgrounds, or you know, from where they're coming, different perspectives, just the way, you know, they can bear each other is also different.
I mean, sometimes just picking a place to go for lunch, team lunch,
Oh.
right? I don't know if that counts, but.
Yes.
I'm working for a small company, Cadmetics, which is based out of Bethesda. It was founded in 2011, 2012. Until 2015-16, it was about only 30 people in IT and about 80 people in customer care. So we own a case management tool, case management product that's owned by the company. So initial days, it was always, there was no process. Let me put it in there. There was no process. So if user or client asks something, hey, I need something on here, I need something on here, there'll be a pool of people waiting for the work. Pick it up, fix it, deploy to production. Zero process. So I joined the company, and there was few changes from the organization perspective as well, from the management side as well. There was a huge support from the management. If you give any idea, they're going to implement it right away, if everybody is okay implementing that. So what we did, first we need to understand the Agile process. It's not that everybody, hey, you need to follow Agile process. It doesn't work that way. First you understand what is the Agile process itself. We have very little knowledge about Agile, everyone in the company. So what we did, we actually attended few sessions like this, where Agile workshops are happening across the DC area. So we got some knowledge, and then we started passing on that information to the team itself. Hey, it's not the way you need to work. There should be certain process before you start anything to work on. Don't start, as soon as you get something, don't start right away working on it. Take a step back, understand what is the need, how you are going to implement it. Do we need to do any prep before you even start working on it? So that's how we started. And then again, we did certifications, attending Scrum meetings and Scrum Alliance and all. I'm a certified Scrum Master as well. So we attended those certifications and all. Then we understand, okay, so it's not that people always come forward and take something. You have to make them think differently, such that they'll go and pick what they want. Don't dictate them. Give opportunities to the people. They will decide which is best, which is not best.
Sure. So that's the diversity in the drive, right?
Exactly.
How you're driven and your approach towards an
Yes.
opportunity.
So
that's the
initial days,
diversity.
it was a hard transformation from not following the process,
Sure.
and then again you start following the process. Now we are at a place of about 100 IT team and about 300 call centers. So we are 500 now in 3 years or so. 3 years, 3.5 years. So it's all about keep the best perception for the resources. It's not that as soon as you hire someone, put them on the project right away.
Yeah.
Keep
No,
some.
that's a great story.
Yeah.
In fact, that might actually, you know, make for a great beginning for you, right? You know, they've started in the same space. No, you're not helpful. No.
Thank
you. All right.
This
so-
slide again sums up that why should you care? You know, as Scrum Masters or as members of an Agile team, why should you care? And this is all what we discussed, maybe not in exactly these words, but this pretty much sums it up as to why you should care. And I had mentioned that, you know, you first take the team to start working together, then, you know, deliver consistently, and then you take them through the journey of high performance, and then you, I believe I silented my phone. Silented is a word I just now made up. Okay, sorry about that. I silented it. All right, and that's my son calling. He didn't see his mommy. He's under daddy daycare right now. But again, you know, how would you take your team from performing consistently to becoming a high performance team? How do you build that trust? And then how do you encourage innovation within the team? And that's what we're going to talk about. So Ella, do you want to?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think there's another slide with some examples. So we're talking about sort of high-performing teams. And, I personally think in addition to the team being able to work with each other, it's also them working with other teams or groups or departments. So, for example, one of my teams, they switched from Scrum to Kanban because the work they were doing is more defect resolution and kind of business as usual enhancements. So, whereas before they had, features that they received that they would break down, so, they had more clear understanding of what was being asked and what had to be delivered. Suddenly the pace picked up and what was needed and when it was needed just, became a bit more unpredictable. So, and through discussions and retrospectives, they realized that they need to work with, for example, in our case, advanced analysis a little bit closer. To almost not have them be part of the team, but have regular meetings to understand what was needed. And then they actually, I think, set up some what they call cohort groups where certain members of the team, like the product owner, would meet with those other folks to get a faster answers to what was needed, to not wait until weekly or monthly meetings, but kind of on a daily basis address their concerns. So again, to have the team kind of understand who they need to work with and how they can faster resolve any roadblocks that they have. Another example is one team where there was basically T-shaped individuals where a QA person was interested in doing development work. So, she mentioned that, and when the opportunity came up, those kind of tasks were given to her. So again, and being able to kind of wear those multiple hats, the idea is that would help the team work better and faster. Let's see. And for myself personally, attending meetups such as this to learn different techniques has been helpful for me.
Surekha, do you want to share something?
Sure. So like I said before, being a Scrum Master, your role is basically to bring your team to a common goal, purpose, and make sure that they live up to the commitments, right? So in order for why should we care, right? So to make the team a high-performing team, I think it is important to understand that everybody has a narrative, like why a person is, why a behavior of the person, right? So everybody has their own narrative, you should be an active listener, being a Scrum Master, to understand what the person is going through. Maybe that's just a bad day for the person, or it's the nature of the person, right? So you have to really understand, and then not being judgmental is one thing that I think not to judge based on one negative behavior, or one just it could be, like I said, it could be just a bad day for the person. And the more importantly, as a Scrum Master, I think the person should show, a Scrum Master should be compassion, at least show smile on the face all the time, so that it gives an a positive emotions, showing a positive emotion is, I think it's really important, when it is trying to connect or build a team with the diverse mentality, or the experience, or however the team is diverse. So it's important for to bring them together, to have them perform or build a high-performing team. I think that's these are some of the things that you really should care as a Scrum Master, bringing the team up.
Awesome. And as again, to make your team high-performing, it'll get to that space only if you build that psychological safety for the team. And how do you build that? Everybody needs to have a voice in the team, and your retrospectives are a very great, very powerful, and a very important tool and a forum for you to get your team to contribute and get to that level. Because retrospectives can have amazing results for you, for your Agile teams, but they seem, more often than not, they're mostly less than ideal forums, and also it's a dispensable buffer. If something else comes, some other meeting comes in the way, the first thing that goes out of the window sometimes is the retrospective. I have seen it happen firsthand. I have struggled with it too. That was one of my journeys towards becoming a better Scrum Master each day. It's like, okay, how these certain Scrum ceremonies, those are non-negotiable, and retrospectives are one of them. So how do you create a safe environment for your team so that everybody has a voice? Ensure that everybody's getting a chance to speak up, and only when you create that safety for them, people will even speak up. So, and how do you do that? It's all easier said than done, right? Try to have some creative games, have fun. Retrospectives should be fun. You should get to a point where your team wants to have, they're eager to attend the retrospective, and if it gets moved, they should actually come and ask you, oh, why did you move the retrospective? You should get to that level. And again, it's hard, but I saw this firsthand when I played a game with one of my teams, and they had so much fun. Everybody was laughing. They were laughing so loudly that Ella, who was sitting right next to the conference room, was like, hey, it's too loud. What are you guys doing out there? People were just having fun. They were laughing so loudly. And that's what you should do. And then slowly build that up. It's not a magical journey that, oh, you play so many games and, oh, suddenly everybody has a voice, they're speaking up. It is not going to happen.
And I think also, Padma, the crux here that you're mentioning with retrospectives is, I think retrospectives is a safe space.
Yes.
That you have an opportunity to understand the diverse, perspectives coming in, because otherwise you are always sprinting, and there's hardly ever a time, even though you recognize the value of diversity, to kind of bring it together and see if the team is leveraging the diversity or detesting the diversity that they have amongst themselves. So I think having retrospectives and making them fun for people to really wanting to come and share their stories is so much more important. So that's the great story.
Just two more things I wanted to add is, if possible, try to have retrospectives, and if you can plan ahead for this, is try to have retrospectives where there are no tables, everybody's sitting around chairs, and try to instill some ground rules that you don't have to bring your laptops. People tend to bring their laptops and hide behind it. So try to do those kind of things, like have people sit in a circle so that that they don't have a place to keep their laptop. They'll keep it on the floor so they're automatically engaged. These are all certain things that you can do to make your retrospectives more productive and everybody have a voice at the table. I also wanted to cover a little bit on innovation, because that's pretty much one of the things that's a desired outcome for me as a Scrum Master. Like, if my team starts becoming innovative, how awesome would that be? And I spoke about this earlier, but that if you go to a team and say, hey, let's collaborate now, and guess what, I've already decided what you have to do and all you need to do is follow, then forget about your team trying to think differently. They just want to hide from you or avoid you. They'll dial into your retrospectives and probably even the daily stand-ups. But I also wanted to emphasize that collaboration is the secret to transforming things. It's not just if you're trying to tweak a process, and basically if you want to collaborate to innovate, it's not just tweaking a process. Unless people feel that safe, that their ideas are not being ridiculed. Yes, I can come up with this idea and I will have somebody to check my idea out. Leave alone whether the idea sees the light of the day. Like that gentleman out there was saying that the management was ready to implement any idea the team comes up with. Well, that's not the case in Fannie Mae, but Fannie Mae has very great innovation ideas, so they encourage. Not everything may get implemented, but we have innovation challenges in Fannie Mae, which I think is is something that I have experienced firsthand. So, and to the extent that I put in an entry as a Scrum Master along with Ava here in the Innovation Challenge, and I was all very excited. I didn't win, but I'm proud to say that I at least had an entry. I was the first Scrum Master to have an entry in the Innovation Challenge. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is, as a Scrum Master, I want to be a catalyst for my team so that they can be their best selves. In Fannie Mae, Fannie Mae has created that environment where, if you have an idea for an innovation, there is an innovation challenge. You have, in fact, one of the leaders for one of the teams even mentioned that, you can save 20% of your capacity within a sprint for innovation work. So that is the kind of support that you're having, and that is the type of catalyst the leaders are. The teams will definitely come up with ideas, or at least they'll start thinking in that direction. If that is not created, then you'll probably just have a consistent team.
And I just want to add to what Padma is saying. So at least in enterprise data, we all, whoever is present in Fannie Mae thinks is part. I don't know which organization you are from. We are from enterprise data, and we have innovation challenges very often. And those, to say the least, are eye-opening, right? Because we have seen some amazing ideas come from these teams. And, going back to the conversation we all had at the beginning, I think those ideas came from the most unexpected corners where, people with completely different backgrounds and experiences and coming from different organizations, different experience levels, collaborated. And I don't know, we had like over 20 entries, and each one of them were groundbreaking, right? And the finalists were like really innovative ideas, and I'm sure we'll have some sponsorship to have them go live. But that was a true eye-opener, because some of them don't show up as extroverts or as if they know or understand. But it is so interesting to see what goes behind that face or that behavior or the demeanor they bring. There is so much, going back to the iceberg, simulation there, right? There's so much that you don't see behind that. So as a change agent, as a catalyst, I think we have a responsibility, a team responsibility to really bring it out, excavate it, right? Whatever tools you use, you have that responsibility to kind of make it happen for the teams, make it happen for your programs. So, and then there are many ways to do it, and Internet is full of those ideas as to how can you have different perspectives come and form something meaningful. But, these are a few of them.
Yeah, and also I wanted to add the amount of pride that I saw in the team members about like this little project that they had, versus like the regular sprint stuff. Yeah, that was really amazing.
I was like bragging that I'm the only Scrum Master who had an entry. So I used every opportunity to brag. So if the organization doesn't create that environment, and you as a Scrum Master doesn't create that environment for your teams where like your voices can be heard, then these things will be hard to come by. And I've experienced all of this firsthand, so I'm able to testify to certain things.
Yeah, basically.
No.
I'm just saying, basically moving away from fixed mindset to growth mindset.
Yeah, that's very important. Did you want to share something about, because you were mentioning something about the stats,
so I mentioned that at the beginning. Basically, like I was saying, so it talked about gender roles and how there's the top box there talks about women versus men and what kind of roles that they're in. So and looking around the office, I kind of found that to be kind of true when I thought about it, right? So just by show of hands, like how many do you find that to be true for the most part? I mean, not So that's kind of interesting, and that's what the numbers were talking about. How especially talking about IT positions, because usually. IT jobs are higher paying, more degrees behind them. Educational degree. So that's the numbers talk about how, out of something like 3.5 million jobs, only 26% were women, and I think only 10% were women of color. So, just talking about gender diversity, clearly there's room for growth, right? And so.
What I wanted to add is, we have situations oftentimes where, someone is getting overheard and someone is getting underheard, someone is getting included, somebody is getting excluded. And I think email communication is a classic example where, I can talk about the men versus women. Again, not all men are like that and not all women are like that, but these are general observations, and I picked this, there is a research behind this, but usually when it comes to email communication, men seem to be low context compared to women. Men will, when a man sends an email, it'll be like, okay, these are the 3 things that we need to do. When a woman sends an email, there's a lot more detail, there's a lot more, and then you'll get to, okay, these are the 3 things to do. So now let's say you're not co-located in the rooms, both of a man and a woman who work in the same team are reading these emails in different environments, sitting in their cubes or sitting in the cafeteria reading it on the phone or whatever, and the man must be thinking, oh my God, she's not even getting to the point. And then a woman must be thinking that, oh my God, that's so rude, there is no context, all this email says is these are the things that we need to do. And this is in a situation where you're not even getting a chance to explain yourself, right? And then you're already forming, you're forming an opinion about the other person, your biases are coming into play. Again, these are general observations, but this is an observed behavior, and there is some research behind this. So again, like
What's the resolution to that?
so
Well, what it used to be the three email rule. I send you an email, you send me a response, I send you a
you
response.
pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
Right.
Yes.
So again, going back to, I think Manish was mentioning, right? It's individuals. And that's why I think Gemba walks back in the day were still popular, because even today, but the concept started way back, where why even bother when you're co-located, right? Don't even rely on electronic communication. But even if you're distributed, phone is far better than email, because you can at least get the voice modulation, or just judging by voice. Because email can be interpreted and perceived in a million ways, right? Even a pause or a dot or a dash can mean something totally different to all of us. So, it's just a diverse way of understanding, just the way of writing or way of talking, it's just very different. So I think just having that, and first of all, I don't think we can resolve it if it's just on the email. And second, I think building tolerance, to what it might mean, giving benefit of doubt, to create that space of, tolerance, to create that space of, it's okay to err, it's okay to get confused or misinterpreted to a certain, radius. I think that gives us all an opportunity and space to accept. So the acceptance overlap increases as you kind of build that. But again, I think there is no substitute to conversation and talking as directly as we can, face-to-face being the best.
And with all the tools that we have and the amount of email we receive in a day, even that is creating a problem of whose voice will be heard. Because, okay, you have like 500 emails sitting in your inbox, which email are you going to read first? And that right there is causing a problem of whose voice gets heard. And if you look at press articles, and as much as the words are very carefully picked, the way women are described is so different from the way men are described. And at times, so one more thing that I wanted to add is, how do you solve the problem when you're left to your own devices to interpret an email, and you're like, okay, she's pushing back too much, or he is too assertive. Just check back, saying that, okay, is he too assertive for me, or is she pushing back on my idea? Is your personal bias coming in? Or you should always do that. Try as much as possible to check back on your biases and keep them in check. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're able to create a psychological safety where everybody is able to voice their concerns out, everybody has a voice at the table, I think that is what will address all the issues that we're having with language barriers, diversity, different experiences, and take the team from forming, norming, storming, performing.
A question. So in my last 10 years of hiring as a manager, right, never a point where I thought I'm going to hire this person because of whatever diversity is, right? We just had the best talent. And maybe I never thought about the team as this is diverse. we just looked at sometimes the strength and sometimes where there are gaps. Somebody is good at ideas and implementation, may not be great at communication. In those cases, we jump in and help them. We never thought in that way of diversity. Do you guys as Scrum Master, I'm sure, your day-to-day job is to create that healthy environment, right? So the team can be highly productive. Do you guys take cognizant of the fact you're going to look at the team as, okay, this is diverse and this is age, this is race. Do you guys do that?
I mean, diverse is what is already there, right? So
right,
it
but
could be in
are
any-
you cognizant of the fact? Do you consciously, look at the team that way and kind of map things out? How do you guys do that?
So, I mean, I can just say that, like, I mean, as a Scrum Master, what you say is what is there already, right? It's within the team. Like our role is to build a high-performing team. So that is what we would like to create with whatever the team that we are given with. So it doesn't, I mean, we don't go asking for like, give me, this is like the teams, right? So with whatever is there, we would like to create.
And also, as you said, I think Scrum Masters typically don't hire the team, right? We are assigned to a team. And when that happens, I think the whole point we are trying to make here is, I don't think anybody, I mean, it would be great if organizations can hire for diversity, but how many of us, really speaking, have that luxury? And with this initiative, Lean and Agile, that I first introduced, we are doing something called organizational partnership, where we want to really talk to the Agile organizations and Lean organizations to hire for diversities, right? But as I see now, I think it's a luxury, not the norm. However, and that's what I repeated earlier also, within the team that you have, within the construct that you have, how can you bring out the best, knowing that everybody is diverse? Right here in this circle, how much diversity do we have? I mean, I can list at least 20 diversities we all have right now in this room. And if we all were to work together, right, if there is a catalyst here who is very cognizant of how diverse we are and how can we bring the strengths, we can form a fantastic team to build a rocket right here, right? So again, we didn't come together being cognizant of the diversities, but then within this group that just formed today, in a meetup in Sterling in RES Systems, how can we bring this diversity together to make a high performance?
But my question to you is, are you conscious about it? Like, do you really
yes.
map things out?
I don't think it's an explicit.
Like for example, when I
cognizance.
deal with my team, I'm not thinking this person is a male, this person is female. I'm not doing that. Right? Here is a job to do, and let's get this done.
It's
but
a training
would you
of the
guys
mind.
do that?
Training of the mind. And
Do you do that in the sense, hey, this person's strengths are this, and this person does the
Absolutely,
best?
absolutely.
Do you do that?
It's
That's-
like
that's
different
very
strokes for
implicit
different folks. I mean,
I would like to give you an option, please.
Well, I wanted to, in regards to recruitment for diversity, it's interesting. So Google has really mastered that because they hire on a panel. The panel has to have consensus. There's no one single hiring manager that says yes or no. So, Google interviews the candidates, and they're all interviewed on a panel, and together the panel decides and comes to a consensus. No one person has the final say.
That's amazing. That's a diverse decision-making process, right?
Exactly.
You're bringing in
that
diversity.
ensures diversity right there. And if you have diversity on your panel, then you're going to ensure diversity. And that's probably what keeps Google as #1.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and from my experience, if your hiring process is tuned right, you don't even need to look for diversity. Diversity will just come to you. You'll get you'll attract many different backgrounds and all the things. You have to really look at your process, because you'll be amazed how many things in it like automatically turn some type of people off, and you don't even get exposed to that market. I will say sometimes, this is not really in hiring, but in forming teams, in terms of the visible things, the #1 thing I try to balance is women and men. Because I've seen too many situations where there's just not enough diversity of thought because there's not enough balance there. and the team makes poor decisions, or they're not as thoughtful with certain things. So that's one thing that consciously I'll admit. Sometimes I'll look at teams and I say they need more women voices, or they need more balance in these areas. But really, if you don't even need to think about diversity if you have your hiring process attract a diverse range of people.
That's absolutely right. In fact, Agile and HR is catching up quite a bit. So, the organizations right now are hiring from mindsets, not because you have a certification or experience in a particular, area, but we hire you for your mindset. We hire you for the growth mindset, as Surekha said, right? How adaptable are you? How willing are you to learn and adopt those challenges? I don't want to hire you because you have 20 years of experience in some industry or in some experience, but I want to hire you for your willingness to, work with a team, being a great team player. So that's catching up quite a bit. And in fact, going back to Matthias, context of just bring gender diversity into a team or an organization, it's amazing what kind of results that can yield. And right from board of directors, all the way to the teams, I'm seeing more awareness and more cognizance of what this gender diversity can do to us. And women on boards, just, if you look at Google or, even on LinkedIn, just go and say women on boards. You'll see how much movement there is globally to bring more women onto the boards, because apparently if you see any boards, typically there is one woman or two at the most. And I've seen the difference in how the strategic direction of the organization changes. It just shifts when you have women, voices coming onto the board. So you'll see that more and more, right? Organizations are hiring for more, gender diversity, and there's definitely, that movement coming in. And I meant to add just one point before I give this to the next slide. We'll open up to questions. Another thing with Lean and Agile organization we are trying to do is conference collaboration, where we are asking conferences to take a women inclusion pledge. It is simply, and Evan Leghorn, right, our Business Agility Institute founder, he took a pledge, Agile Business Consortium, founded in London. I had a meeting with the CEO of that company, and in fact I had a post on LinkedIn, and then he said, Agile Business Consortium needs to collaborate with you. And when I got on the phone, he said, even before I could complete the Women Inclusion Pledge, he said, I pledged, right? So it's people are coming forward, and the pledge is all about, as a conference committee organizer, all that you have to say is, we have space for you, right? So women can apply, women can come forward, because in the study, and I personally interviewed many potential speakers, women speakers, when a conference proposal, call for papers opens up, the women are intimidated just by the lineup. They don't know what the men are talking about, but just by the sheer lineup of the men speakers right there, they don't even attempt to submit the papers.
I think
Now, how
that's an
sad is-
awfully broad generalization.
Yeah, but I'm just,
Right. I'm actively involved in a couple of Agile government conferences. We have a pretty high, almost 50-50 kind of, men and women as far as that. And
and
in a
that's
lot of
very
cases-
encouraging.
Yeah,
right?
so I don't know that they.
And again,
That's
right,
overly
the one that, the incident that I just, or, the generalization that I was trying to bring up is based on the conversations that, because I deal with many speakers. And the reason why I'm bringing it up as a representation of those voices is that, they've explicitly stated that they're intimidated when it comes to, applying for a reputed conference, for example, right? Or applying for a conference where they know already they'll be there. But conferences that you're mentioning that you're involved in, those are the kind of conferences that we need, right? To have more women inclusion, to have more voices, diverse opinions and different diverse perspectives coming in. And in fact, Agile Business Consortium, they already have 50% inclusion, right? So we do have, again, this is not 100% generalization, but I'm bringing in the voice of many people that have explicitly stated that, I know that I'm not going to get into that conference because I know that there are 10 papers already, and I don't think I stand a chance. So again, we need advocates like yourself, right, to say that no, there are conferences which have space reserved for people like you. So please feel free to apply. We encourage you. So we need to kind of explicitly state that probably. But again, it's catching up. I think, there is a movement, there is a pivot in mindsets that's happening.
Yeah, I even think, as the Agile Alliance has a huge thing, women in Agile.
Yes.
And there's also some local, and there's some also local.
Dima and Natalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some also local women in Agile meetup groups
Yes.
in the area.
Yeah.
I know there's some Baltimore. Because I work for a company that I think I'm very fortunate that we have so many women in leadership and that embrace it. I had a
Including
comment.
your CEO, huh?
CEO.
Well, our CEO and CIO, both are women.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely proud to be working in that organization. So it's not that it's non-existent.
It just happened though, right?
Yeah, it just happened. So it's just shifting.
So it's
right?
shifting, especially I see in Capital One, huge push for women leadership. So in Fannie Mae, in my 13 years, it just happened last 1 year, we're seeing the change.
Right.
I think the realization that I came to personally is that there's many subconscious things that turn people off, that men in general probably don't even think about. And I think the women voices example that's just one example, where everyone realizes, okay, if you have men and women mixed teams, they come up with a lot more innovative things. So that's a no-brainer. How do we attract more women to join our teams? And they start realizing that the way that we advertise things and that we hire people or bring people on board or show ourselves to the world, there's a lot of things that turn women off. And they're unconscious things that we don't think about. We don't come out and say, oh, we're going to turn women off. And when you start looking at those things and you start getting feedback, like what are things that turn you off? Like I got feedback from a meetup that I noticed that there hardly any women showed up to it. And I asked them, and I'm like, why didn't a lot of women show up? And they said, well, you had a picture with 2 men on it. and they said, it's unconscious, but when you sprinkle some of those things on, you're suddenly making a statistical impact. And so that's just one example. There's examples, like you said, with retrospectives. When you change up the format, you get voices that are suddenly comfortable in this new format. And they come speaking out and they realize, oh, I can be a part of this because I'm comfortable in this, engaging in this way. So yeah, I love hearing examples of, well, we took a look at this and we changed things up and suddenly we realized, oh, we had all this new level of engagement that we were untapping before.
Absolutely. Sorry, you had a
comment. I was just going to make a comment here. One, I thought this was excellent. But a number of you mentioned about trying to become, getting to a high-performing team. Mm-hmm. And this is just regardless of anything, and you mentioned, is it Padma?
Yes.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the very end about, forming, storming, norming, performing, and I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that model, but I'll tell you, I would highly recommend as Scrum Masters, any Scrum Master, we have a diverse team, it doesn't matter, but truly understand that forming, storming, norming, performing model. And if you're not familiar with it, the Bruce Tuckman model,
yep.
Right? He was a professor/researcher, I think, from Ohio University.
This is the Tuckman's theory.
Ohio University
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
But he'll say every single team, I don't care what kind of team you have, will always go through those 4 phases.
Yeah.
And as a Scrum Master, you better recognize what phase you're currently in. And I always ask, what phase is your team in right now? Which one of those? And just because you get to high performing, what's going to put you back down to storming?
Yeah.
It could be diversity, it could be something, I don't know, but it's a critical thing, but just, as a scrum, you know.
There could be times when a new team member joins and disrupts the whole equilibrium of the team. I
Absolutely.
have seen that
Yeah,
happen
same
too.
In fact, we just
firsthand.
had that conversation
Same
in the
here.
car. while
I've
driving
seen
here.
that, or
So-
leadership change or something has totally disrupted that thing.
Yeah,
Whole
I
team.
have experienced that firsthand. So.
Yeah,
Awesome.
excellent.
Any other questions or parting thoughts here? Please go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I have a question, and that's, Agile is a journey, you know that. It's a cultural change. Organization needs to adapt and transform. What is the biggest challenge that do you guys report to the same leadership? Do you have organization that is matrix, where you have operations, business operations, has its own leader versus technology, and when you're delivering product, you cannot deliver a product without bringing operation into the picture. How did you deliver product across multiple siloed organizations?
So we have one leader under whom we have operations as well. I don't know if that's the case in the other parts of the organizations, but operations is very much within, you know, the bigger umbrella, right? So at least our executive has operations and DevOps under him. So we deliver product as one group, not as siloed organizations. I don't know if you want to add anything, Manish, because you're closer to that.
I remember we still had some challenges, and what we did, if you remember, some of the safe planning events, we invited the operations team.
But
Remember
now I
that?
think
Probably you can talk about that.
with operations coming in, I think one thing we have done in the past, and please chime in, you know, with your experiences, is that we were under enterprise agility, right? So we adopted SAFe to kind of, you know, tackle the dependencies across, you know, the cross-team dependencies. And not having operations within our organization had its own challenge, because, you know, we were developing and operating in different silos. So we actively, consciously included them, invited them into our planning sessions. So that gave them exposure to what's coming, and it gave us an exposure to their challenges once we kind of develop and kind of, you know, let it go. So because we don't have a true DevOps and a very mature DevOps team, so the best we could do was to integrate them and have their voice at the decision-making tables as much as we can. And even while incorporating them into the plannings, we still had a divide, right? You know, still had a divide of understanding. But I would say it alleviated the challenge quite a bit. You know, they started seeing who's developing, how they're developing, and what they're developing. So there was a little bit of interaction from that perspective, but that's the best we could do.
The practice that we have three different verticals. One is ops, next is IT, next is business. Business and IT work together always with the support of operations. So the input is always comes from operations. I need this. So there will be a collaborative session between ops team and then IT team to extract the initial requirements. So the process of development starts from there onwards, and then ops team will go up, IT team will implement that. Again, we will pull ops team during the UAT phase just to verify this is what I asked, this is what I got. And then it goes to production.
All right, so yeah.
So, I love these meetups, I love the Agile environment. And you guys talk about collaboration and psychological safety, right? I know that where I work, and it's gonna stay nameless. There is no collaboration and there is competition, right? So last week, one of the team members just tripped me in front of the customer, knowingly, right? So, no. So then I thought, why on earth would she do that? And then I realized it's because she is not thinking collaboratively, right? She's thinking, I need to get from here to here, and no matter what I do, I need to get here.
Yeah.
Have you guys experienced or witnessed behavior like this?
Yes, but I've also seen the other side where Agile has worked where you have a shared ownership of the problem, you also have a shared ownership of the achievement. And one of the programs that I worked on, there were like 4 Agile teams that were co-located, and every time a user story was accepted, they'll ring a bell and everybody would clap. And then, and that created like an instant excitement across everybody that was co-located in that team. You may not necessarily belong to team A, but since team A, B, C, D were so it just created this shared ownership of the achievements also. And again, it happened over time, but there was a lot of buy-in from leadership that, it's the team that succeeds, it's the team that delivers the value. So that.
And it also depends on, who the co-worker of you, in terms of, how is she plugged in? Are you in the same team, or, do you share, is it a shared responsibility or is it a shared vision? How are you plugged in, right? That
we
matters.
are silos. Everybody's doing their own little thing, and I'm going to show that to the customer that I'm better than you, and yoo-hoo.
And then this is where, this is where, Agile is more, valuable, right? The Agile mindset. Because in Agile, it's not you or me, but it's more about the team versus individual. So, a few slides back, it was the we versus I. So I think the more and more we are hearing your story, there's a business case to bring in Agile into your organization.
I was thinking you were going to say to invite Padmini in.
There's one more I would like to add, which is, in order to build trust with the team, also have shout outs within the team in your daily stand-up. If somebody has helped you, they have gone out of their way to help you, or even if they didn't go out of their way, you're a team, you're supposed to work together, you're supposed to help each other. But if somebody took time, they put something else aside and prioritized you over your work, over their work, give them a shout out, thank them, and encourage that.
That's a great idea, right?
I do that.
There you go.
I do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Shout out to you.